Within the last 7 years or so, the Exploratorium decided to engage environmental arts and sciences. In our Bay Observatory, we established this program which brings together artists, scientists, and educators to help the general public understand our local environment and also get ready for climate change.
The RISER project is an interdisciplinary project that's supposed to do an integrated analysis of sea level rise and climate adaptation in the Bay Area.
RISER stands for the resilience of infrastructure as seas rise. So what we're seeking to understand is how rising seas create new shorelines and disrupt infrastructure systems, with our focus being transportation and increasingly wastewater infrastructure as well, and how governance in the Bay Area was prepared or not prepared to meet that challenge. Through engineering models, we were able to surface the fact that there's a great deal of interconnectivity in the Bay Area. A threat or a risk at one location creates a much broader impact than what you might otherwise expect.
Mark Stacy has worked with us in a number of different projects about hydrology and sea level rise, and we had been talking about a way that we could be involved in the RISER project. We developed a grant we called Artistic Practice Towards Urban Resilience, with this idea of engaging artists as problem solvers to work with a team of scientists to see if they could influence perhaps the scientists, and if they had that kind of connection to science and data and evidence, if it could help their practice. It was kind of research for all of us to figure out how can we engage people in climate adaptation and climate resilience.
I work across a lot of medium and scales. I have a very collaborative practice, and to me, getting data and inputs from designers and finding narratives within data is a large part of my practice.
I work a lot with water. I was raised in Seattle, and I come from a family that migrated from China in the 30s via water. And I think being raised in Seattle, I have a close connection with nature.
APUR is a really unique project in that it's directly trying to bridge science and design or arts. Often these two types of work are kept very separate even within projects, where engineers will do their work and artists will do their work, and they're not really in conversation. So I was really interested to see what a dialogue back and forth over a year would produce. I've worked on climate change issues globally, but I hadn't really had an opportunity to dig into the specific challenges that the Bay Area is going to face.
I've looked at the data, I've read the studies. I was really fascinated with the things that they said and were also written in the studies. So things like, we're all in the same boat. If their feet aren't wet, they're not going to do anything. So statements that seemed maybe off the cuff remarks, but actually are quite crucial to figuring out why people behave or choose to do things the way they do.
In the evaluation of the proposals that they brought forward, I think we were looking at ranging from very data-centric and data-heavy approaches like what Sarah brings, to more narrative-driven approaches like what Byron brings. And in the end, I think that was really complementary for the project to have those two extremes relative to how they think about data.
I thought that Byron was more of an out-of-the-box choice as far as what can music really bring to climate adaptation. What would that look like?
There are 5 things that are part of a survival kit. There's food and water, there's shelter and warmth, there's first aid, there's a signaling device, and there's a navigation device. I feel like there needs to be a 6th, and that's play and storytelling, right, for humans to be able to survive. The project right now is called 9 Lifeboats. 9 comes from the 9 counties in the Bay Area. There are 9 Chinese dragons. There are 9 muses in Greek mythology. There are 9 circles of hell in Dante's Divine Comedy. So there are other ways that this number 9 can play into it. It's a participatory performance of 9 lifeboats. Each lifeboat contains 8 to 10 audience members, and the audience are the performers as well. So each lifeboat is a scripted activity that has singing. It also has story sharing. Starting with inhales and then exhales and then inhales, and then maybe out comes a whistle sound, which can sound like the sea or the wind. With multiple people doing that, we start to get this composite sound. Whether it's a drone sound or whistle sound, starting to introduce text. Rain begins, drop, single drop, single drop, single drop. I'm not as used to participatory performance, but realized within this, if I wrote a couple of songs and had them learned, that would actually be disingenuous to what this project is trying to do.
With Byron's art, it's very participatory, and you have to have everybody working together to produce the art, and that's kind of the same way with resilience in the Bay Area around sea level rise or climate adaptation, is that you have to have all the actors working together.
People are being forced to migrate because of hurricanes, because of floods. So how then do we imagine a work that is imagining that and building towards resilience?
My sense of what Byron was trying to pursue during this project was to make the risk of climate change personal. It pulled me out of my comfort zone of data and modeling and calculations, which has been really good for me. But it was a really different approach.
I came into the project interested in how we mark the city and how symbols could start to inform climate or anticipated change in climate conditions in the city. I wanted to present a project that could really engage the public, and that meant not making it outside of their daily lives, bringing it to people's daily lives, and it also meant not making it a big, dire emergency, but instead just giving information and letting people actually engage with the information. There are a couple points of departure I had from the riser work. The perception of sea level rise as a personal challenge, as well as our commons within the Bay Area and how they're going to be affected. By commons, I mean all of the amenities and infrastructure that we all use. We tend to think of our home as our house, but really the city is our home, and we have a lot of systems that we rely on in our daily life that we don't necessarily think of when we think of the impacts that sea level rise is going to have on us. The other thing that really struck me in the work that Riser's done has to do with time and connecting time to sea level rise. A lot of the questions you'll see around sea level rise are, will this be fine or not fine? And it's really more of a question of when will this be affected? So how to show an anticipation of another condition or show a projection of another condition was part of the work I thought design could do in response to their data.
With Sarah, I would say that the biggest challenge was to think about how to communicate the numeric and quantitative results of our work in a way that could be translated into the kind of symbolic representation that she was developing.
So the Climate Compass is a large installation that's on the ground. So you can walk on it and you can walk around it. It orients you north like a compass. It orients you uphill to think about evacuation. It orients you to the coast or the shore. And then it orients you in time to how far above sea level you are and you will be, and also at what point floods and storm surges will start impacting this area.
In my work, one of the key barriers to sea level rise adaptation is public engagement and awareness and getting people to care about the issue. So Sarah's work for me does that.
The first of these has been installed now on the pier at the Exploratorium. We're working to expand the single prototype into a collection of installations around the city, and then we're looking at other ways that this could manifest itself, whether it's individual data or a series of points or a digital version. By putting data, literally into the public sphere and literally on the ground, I'm hoping to just connect daily activities with these overall long-term changes that are going to happen around us.
We noticed that the two projects actually were quite complementary. While Sarah's climate compass defines a certain space and time, the thing that Byron's work does is kind of activates that space so that it gets people engaged with the compass and the ideas, and the storytelling and the kind of personal connection can happen.
I think there's a distance with climate change. There's a distance with sea level rise. I look at the data projections and I think, oh, that's in the distance. And so it's really figuring out how then to bring people closer together. And I do feel that if people bring something to the table, that in that sharing, they're more willing to accept the gifts of other people sharing with them. And so that's the hope that 9 Lifeboats in the work we're doing can start to inform.